Housekeepers of Reddit, what is the craziest almost NSFW thing you've walked in on in a hotel or at a client's house? I was the manager of a shitty extended stay hotel years ago. The housekeepers like to call me in to witness unusual findings. One guest had left a couple of potatoes with condoms on them under the bed. I guess it was overall harmless. But not sure how potatoes were the winner of phallic vegetable shopping options. Does third shift room service at a casino hotel count? People walking the hallways bare naked at 4 AM. Lots of topless cougars wanting to impress. The worst is the post-sex smell that some couples have. I'm not going into details on that one. Was a manager in a 3-star hotel. We'd found some guests that had overstayed checkout by about 3 hours. Asked them to leave and had come back again to tell them they had to get out. The final time I came to check on them I just walked in because I was sick of it. She was on her knees sucking him off and just looked round at me. I held the door wide open. Told them to get out and that I'd call the police if they didn't. Neither seemed bothered. Just a bit disappointed that I'd interrupted them. So I work as a dorm keeper at my college and normally I only clean a few of the female floors because, well, I'm a female. So one day the people who were supposed to clean the boys' floors just didn't show. Our boss asked if anyone wanted to make some extra money and since I'm a broke college kid my hand went up. We got sent off to the floors to clean and I'm a few rooms in and everything had been going perfectly fine. I get to this room and this kid pokes his head out from across the hall and goes, "Hey, good luck," and goes back into his room. At this point I'm just thinking, yeah, whatever, let's do this. I open the door and I feel so bad for whoever is going to marry this boy because, first of all, the room smelled like shit. Like actual fesses. I gagged and stepped out for a second before covering my mouth and going back in. The room was covered in clothes, old food, books, papers. Basically you name it. It was there. So I start cleaning and I get halfway through and notice this absolutely rancid smell coming from a drawer and open it and this kid had a dead rabbit just sitting in his drawer. I pulled the poor thing out and stuck it in the trash bag and moved to the next drawer and found a bunch of old syringes and bags that had clearly held Drew Gus. At this point I'm dreading opening the third drawer but, for some reason, I do it anyways and this one is full of 6 toys. Not the normal dildo and vibrator, but bondage material. A porn book specifically for people with a foot fetish. And this man had a bag of literal shit in his drawer. That's when I dropped everything and ran. Like straight up sprinted out of that room. I went to manager, told him everything and that kid got kicked out of our school the next day. I also learned that the kid that had wished me luck was the previous roommate of the kid and had moved rooms to get away from the room. I quit cleaning rooms after that. I delivered a pizza to a hotel room and a obese woman covered in semen answered the door naked. In the background 4 dudes stood naked pretending like this was totally normal. I figured shocking me and demeaning her further got them off. It was a credit card order and a little jizz got on it. I left the receipt and reprinted it. Good tippers. My wife used to work at a Marriott Residence Inn, so long and short-term guests as a housekeeper. I asked her what her worst stories were. One was where she did her knock housekeeping 2 or 3 times. Then with no answer let herself into the room. And there was a Chinese man in there jacking it to Latina porn. The other one I remember her telling me back in the day was a room where when she went in the bathroom and there was shit everywhere except where it was supposed to be. The walls. The floors. The tub. The sink, but not in the toilet. They left an apology note and a giant tip, like a $40 tip. She would often get tips in the forms of food and liquor beer. Anytime they left she turned it in because you never know when the bosses were trying to set someone up. Not my story. But my girlfriend works in hospitality at a hotel and she has seen some crazy stuff. The weirdest, funniest was probably when the housekeeper found bed sheets, blankets, and the mattress covered in sheet with a note explaining sorry for the mess. My slave had an unfortunate accident. I worked as a day porter in a very mediocre hotel. One day a couple were late to check out, so the receptionist sent me to go and knock them up and ask them to leave. I knocked at the door for about 5 minutes to dead silence. At first I thought nothing of it. Went down and told reception that there was no answer and to try the phone again. The receptionist was pretty pissed and told me I had to go and unlock the door because they weren't answering. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't like opening locked doors unless I know I'm meant to be there. So, I go upstairs and knock again and call out that I'm about to enter. I open the room and find what the largest amount of leftover Drew Gus I'd ever expected to see. There were lines on the dressers, syringes on the ground, and some weed lying around. From the door I couldn't see the bed and my heart was ducking pounding, expecting to see a dead or dying junkie. Slowly I crept forward, literally battling my thundering heart and common sense every step. After all, what a leftover Drew Gus. No one leaves Drew Gus behind. It wasn't a long way to the bed, but as I said, I literally moved like a snail. A really frightened snail. When I finally came past the bathroom door and could see the bed, there was no one in it. I checked the rest of the room to make sure there was no body in the bath etc, but that was it. Just Drew Gus. There were other funny unexpected nights and mornings in that hotel, but this one takes the cake of craziest housekeeping find. Used to work front desk at a hotel, but did help housekeeping with minor things on nights where we were busy. One night this couple checked in and then left after about 4 hours. I went in with housekeeping to see if I could help at all, and as soon as I walk in, I see about 10 used condoms and a large bottle of lube on the bedside table. It's definitely not the worst thing on this thread, but it wasn't a pleasant cleanup for the housekeeping, I'm sure. I had a cleaning lady come for the first time ever yesterday. When I got home and I realized I forgot to put away the bondage harness on our bed from the night before. They were nice enough, brave enough to still make the bed. I've realized they'll ignore pretty much anything and just do their job the best they can. I'm so grateful to them. I'm sure it went on Snapchat to a few friends though. I'm a housekeeper at a hospital for the midnight shift. A few days before last Christmas, I got a call to come to the ER immediately. A 24-year-old woman positive for hepatitis A had sheet everywhere and was being discharged. Her feces did not look normal at all. I'm talking bright yellow and orange looking sheet that assaulted my nose as soon as I walked in. Whatever. I smear some minty toothpaste in my mask, double glove and gown up to bleach the entire room. Before I can start, however, the same patient is wheeled back in and is very still and looking very pale. The doctor and nurses look at her and see that she is not breathing and call a code blue. The hospital I work at is small and I'm friendly with a lot of the staff, so it doesn't take but a few minutes to be told quietly by the radiologist that she had inhaled some heroin that she had hid as she was being wheeled out of the hospital. The poor woman was wheeled to trauma not too far away from her original room. And since the ER has only a few rooms, I could hear the whole nursing staff trying to revive her as I bleached and stripped the infected exam room. I just wanted to incinerate the linen and curtains when I was done. I knew all hope for the patient was lost when I saw her parents wailing by the trauma room and a priest holding a bottle of holy water walk through the door at 3 in the morning. The mortician was called to collect the body and I spent the rest of my shift dousing the trauma room with 3 bottles of bleach while trying my best to ignore the anguished cries of the girl's relatives. I went home, scrubbed myself in the shower, and threw my clothes in the washer 3 times and slept like rock after that. Good times. Edit, my account is only a few days old and I just got gilded. I don't know if this truly deserved gold, but thank you. All your comments are making me feel much more appreciated. Not a housekeeper but worked as a maintenance guy at a hotel. I was one of the few people who knew how to fix the hot tub and AC units. I was also the only one dumb enough to answer my phone at 3 AM to fix things. There was only one time this ever worked in my favor. We had a college basketball volleyball tournament in town. The hot tub died and they couldn't get it started again. So they tried calling the boss. No answer. Then they tried calling the head maintenance. No answer. They called me. I answered. I was at the bar. So I leave the bar and drive to work to see what the hell is wrong with it this time. I go in expecting the usual old people and soccer moms. What I wasn't expecting was to find 3 all-female teams in my pool rooms dressed in skimpy bikinis, and some didn't even have tops on. In hindsight, I'm positive this was because the coaches were at the bar I just came from, and the front desk guy definitely wasn't going to say anything. Unfortunately, the hot tub fix was only like a 5-minute problem. The breaker tripped in the boiler room. Edit, spelling error. Housekeeper walked in on me dancing to Taylor Swift in just her shirt a few weeks back. It was like 9 AM with no warning knock. I'm gonna assume you're a dude. The song was Shake It Off. And being clad a la Donald Duck, shirt, no pants. You were spinning up the rotors on the helicopter as the song approached its climax. I worked in a hotel around 14 years ago. I was walking towards work one morning when I saw about 5 police cars outside. I was taking over as shift manager, so went straight over to see the manager that should have been leaving. Basically, a guy I had checked in the day before, who seemed completely normal, had gone batshit crazy in his room with an axe. Smashed up the TV, walls, the bathroom door. Absolute chaos. He thought there was a tactical police force abseiling down the hotel walls outside his window to take him away. I left the job and never found out if it was a drug-related episode or a psychotic break. Edit, grammar. While it is not housekeeping, my mother works as a criminal detective for the police and my sister is a paramedic. So they do enter other homes from time to time. They had some really dug up stories to tell. My sister once ran into a return of weapons, illegal in Germany, that were in the apartment or also drew gus. She tried to give nearby police sort of a hint that they maybe want to take a look into that apartment, but they were too dense to do so. And she couldn't state anything cause of NDA and stuff. My mother once got into an apartment with a 3-week-old corpse that was halfway eaten by worms. They were actually called because sheet was dripping into the apartment below. Or also once an apartment which was covered several centimeters high in sheet. She said her colleagues wanted to close it, but she went in and the person in there actually still lived. And my sister once ran into a dismembered grandmother. I believe they were called because blood was coming out of the door. A blood-soaked bed in one of the suites. Like, more than we could reasonably pass off as menstrual blood. The boss made one of the ladies clean it up while the rest of us started the rooms on the 2nd floor. At one point I looked out one of the windows to the parking lot below. There was a large, dark red puddle just behind someone's parked Camry. I brought the boss in to look at it, and she decided to step out to investigate but told me to get back to work. She refused to talk about it for the rest of the day. Not sure what came of the situation since I quit shortly after. Not a housekeeper, but mine walked in on my so and I mid-duck and just quietly turned around and closed the door. Daylight savings and we hadn't changed the clocks, so weren't expecting her for an hour. We cleaned our own room that day. There was a furry convention at the hotel I worked at, and every year we had to almost entirely shut down the place after they left. All the front desk staff, bellmen, office people etc. had to help the housekeepers pick up all the condoms and clean the fesses urine drew gus pizza off the walls. Califer. I worked as a hospital housekeeper for a little while. I wasn't there for very long, but the craziest thing I experienced was the psych floor. It was downright creepy watching middle-aged men play with crayons and walk around in circles. Worked as a housekeeper a few years ago. Room 506. Buddy decided to commit suicide. Bathroom was painted red. I did not clean it up. Worked at a ski hotel once, and it was a very family-oriented wholesome hotel. Sure, you could come to party, but usually they would stay at other hotels or apartments. That is why it was so weird when we found a turd on the floor. And when I say floor, I mean carpeted floor dart. What was especially strange was that it was underneath the beds. So they would have had to remove the beds, take a sheet, and then put the beds back. And there was nothing wrong with the toilet. My friend was in RA at college. The dorm she was over or whatever had suite style rooms. So like a living bathroom and 2 bedrooms which could be locked. One kid had been complaining about the smell from his roommate's room but hadn't seen him in like a week to confront him about it. But they didn't have similar schedules or friend groups so it didn't raise an alarm. Eventually like Thursday he called the RA to check it out. As you can probably guess, the roommate was dead in the other room for like a week. They think he died of a drug overdose like the previous Friday or Saturday. A friend of mine's stepmom cleaned this older couple's house for years. One day she said the husband was napping in his chair and she didn't want to wake him so she quietly cleaned around him. Wife comes home and it turns out he had died sometime while she was gone running errands. Kind of really messed my buddy's mom up for a while. Back in college I took on a job one summer of cleaning university apartments after the students left for the semester. It was good money and I got to work with 2 friends. So we usually got each place finished in about 2 hours. One apartment didn't look too bad upon walking in. All the furniture was out, which was nice. A lot of students just leave their crappy college stuff behind rather than lug it home. However, the bathroom was a ducking disaster. Puke everywhere. And old puke. All over the floor and the bottom of the toilet bowl. Like not in the bowl, but completely crusted onto the back and bottom and the way behind it. Dried piss everywhere and sheet around as well. It's like they never made anything into the toilet. It took me 2 hours alone to clean their bathroom. The worst part was when I opened the fridge. There was a dead snake in the bottom drawer. Nothing else in the entire fridge. But the bottom see-through drawer contained a dead black snake that was stiff as a board. Poor baby. 20 years ago I worked as a housekeeper in a large bed and breakfast that was situated in a very conservative, small town community. It was big news that a les couple had spent the night in one of the hot tub rooms. Snickers and disgusted comments were flying amongst employees. Some of my co-workers even got upset with me because I didn't see any harm done. As I was loading a washer my co-worker runs into the laundry room. She was looking rather green and began puking into a large trash can. When her stomach was empty she told me that I would have to clean that room. What I found were candles all around the room. Rose petals as well. And body prints on the mirror that was situated behind the hot tub. Not really NSFW in my eyes. But apparently it was a big deal to everyone else. So, I work for a hotel but didn't walk in on anybody but had to go to a housekeeper's place of living because she hadn't been to work in 5 days. After numerous calls to family members nobody had spoken to her and it was odd. So myself and the hotel's manager went to her apartment to check in on her and as we got to the location we found her apartment and it's next door to the leasing office and they haven't seen her either and rent was due so that was another odd thing. We then knocked like the police on her door several times and no answer. The property maintenance crew showed up and unlocked the door but it was locked from the inside so she had to be in there. We then called the police and as they arrived they broke the window to her apartment and we entered through there and found her dead body laying in the middle of her living room on a mattress. She had no other furniture, no TV, no dresser, no nothing. She must have been dead those 5 days she didn't show up to work because the way her body looked and the amount of blood that was on the sheets and what had run down her mouth and down her neck. She had tissues and tissues of blood around her and come to find out she had the flu and possibly had complications from that and having pneumonia. I'll never forget the sight and it still creeps me out till this day. Not a housekeeper but a front desk clerk told me a story about their hotel. I worked in a boom town for about 2 months a few years ago. Population tripled over the last 5. People were living out of hotels because there weren't enough houses. And the houses that they were open are extremely expensive. Anyway, a couple of guests came into a hotel, complained about the smell. The hotel moved them to a different room and cleaned the hotel thoroughly. The same thing happened again, they moved the guests and cleaned the hotel thoroughly. 3rd time this happens and they finally remove the bed thinking somebody peed or crapped in it, as that happens from time to time. They found a dead body in the box under the bed. My buddy used to have a temp job cleaning fraternities here in town for Indiana University. A couple of the frats would purposely trash their place knowing they wouldn't have to clean it up. He walked in on his first date a frat house that had walls smeared with human feces. He sweated through it but didn't last long at that job.